Hello, Fanatics supporters. How are you guys doing on this Memorial Day weekend? We got the Writers Room coming in tonight. It's been a while since the Writers Room has got together. I wasn't even around when the Writers Room was doing their thing, but here we are. We're back at it, off season. Dog days of the off season. Got to provide that content, and the Writers Room is doing it. So I figure we're going to give the writers room and specific writers a chance to introduce themselves, introduce their articles, and let you guys into, the mind of what's going on with these writers and how they're applying their content to the Buffalo Bills. So tonight I got BF Spy Eric on the bottom, and I got Alex Shrek up there in the top right. I believe his handle is Scientific Shrek on Twitter.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Nice. So glad I got that right. So yeah, we're gonna hop right into it. Really, just talk about the articles from this past week. We're gonna be doing this every Sunday moving forward with this off season. Going to be bringing on people that wrote articles within a week from obviously each Sunday, and yeah, just highlight your articles. I'm gonna start with Eric though. Really, Eric, your most recent one was about the Miami Dolphins and how the Bills stack up against the Dolphins in week 2. And really, my first notes. I mean, I'll let you talk about it. Give your rundown, just your quick synopsis of why you felt like. I mean, obviously you're going in order with these because you started with the Steelers the week before. Mm-hmm. But yeah, give your rundown of why you gave the Dolphins the threat level you gave them, certain things in your article that if people haven't read it, why they should, certain things like that. And I'll toss it in the chat just so you guys got the link.
Okay. What is going on, Fanatics? It's BF Spy here. You guys know me. I've been around since last season. I want to explain a little bit of the off-season process for the Spy this off-season because it's the first time we've had the Spy column in the off-season. So we're, as Kendall alluded to, we are going through the schedule week by week in chronological order as the schedule says. And, of course, it was the Steelers last week. That was a really good one. And then this one, the Dolphins, it's a divisional matchup. We had some input from Fanatics' own resident Dolphins expert, Kevin Gerard, in there. So he's also featured in the Spy. Be sure to check that out. But these will be coming out every week, and we're going to go through the schedule the whole way through, all the way up until the season begins, and then we'll transition back into actual in-season coverage, if you will. Now, for the Dolphins article specifically, you'll notice a couple of things, and this goes back to the Steelers as well. There's a threat rating issued at the end of the Spy article for every team that we play, and it's scored simply 1 to 10. The higher you are, or rather the closer to 10, the more of a threat you are to the Bills specifically. And that's the way it works. So with the Dolphins article, as just a synopsis, I think they're the next biggest threat, in the division. I believe in the Dolphins more than I believe in the Jets, and I believe in the Dolphins more than I believe in the Patriots, without a shadow of a doubt. And the reason for that is I think that the Dolphins have a higher ceiling than the Patriots do. When I get to the Patriots, you'll see why, but just to give you a spoiler, it has to do with the quarterback position. That's what's going on. And yes, I know Tua is the quarterback of the Dolphins. He's yet unproven, but let's remember, Josh Allen was once in the same exact boat. So he has a lot less of a body of work and more leeway than a guy like Cam Newton does. So there's the thought process there. But basically, we're going through these teams in the offseason. We're assigning them a threat matrix as we see it now, and we are breaking down what have these teams done to get better at present. Right. So that's the general sense of what you're going to see from the Spy articles this offseason.
So the thing I noticed, it's funny because you talked about Tua. You didn't talk about Tua a whole lot in the article. Was there a reason for that? Was it because you're just not so concerned, or was it just because you wanted to cover more of the acquisitions, the additions and subtractions of this offseason more than what we already know about the team?
More so the latter, but to address the former point, I will say this. You guys out there that are watching, and both of you, I bet, have probably gone to the store, yourselves, or people who have a sort of brand loyalty, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want that certain product, and or else they just won't buy it. They'll go to another store and look for it. But my thing is with Tua, I don't have any brand loyalty. I'm not convinced yet. Convince me, and then I'll have some. I'll be a little bit intimidated by what you're bringing to the table. But I'm not. It's
right.
just it's generic brand right now. It's we're buying the basic here. So
right.
that's what it comes down to for me. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Patriots, where I don't trust Cam as far as he can throw, which isn't very far.
Right.
So
before I get into the nitty gritty of your article, I do want to touch on. I want to allow Alec to speak on so far what you've broken down with the Dolphins. Is there anything specifically of the Dolphins offseason, Alec, that that stood out to you? Anything about Tua you want to talk about? Anything like that about the Dolphins that you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really think the Dolphins had a great draft. I think they did all the right things. They acquired a bunch of players in positions that they needed. So I think that's really scary for every team in the NFL, not just teams in their division. Right. Obviously, it's a little scarier for us because we have to see them twice a year, but it's still a very scary thing. I'm not the biggest believer in Tua, but, I mean, he's still an NFL quarterback. You have to respect him. He's made it here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm in the same kind of boat where I'm not the biggest believer in the guy. There's something about him at Alabama where I was like, I don't know if this guy's going to make it at the next level. I can see him absolutely being a starter at the next level. I just don't know if he's going to ascend past just being a mid-tier starter. I don't know if he'll ever get past that. Eric, it looks like, do you disagree? You don't even think he'll get mid-tier starter?
I agree with you, but I had something to add in.
Yeah.
I think that, and people said this a lot about Josh Allen too, and this may in fact be a proven concept with Sam Darnold. I think that Tua's development and his ceiling, a large part of that outcome is going to depend on the route that his coaching staff chooses to take,
right,
with his employment and deployment at the quarterback position. Last season, he had a very basic, Madden style playbook to work with.
Yeah.
And if they want him to develop and flourish, anybody can develop, but if they want him to flourish and to go the lengths that players like Josh Allen have gone in their development, they're going to have to open up that playbook.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to figure out ways to construct packages, schematics, and tactical situations that fit his strengths best. Otherwise, he's never going to get there, even if he did have the raw talent. Because without his coaching staff behind him, he's already at a handicap.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that's a big part of it, and we saw the yo-yoing of him in and out of the lineup last year. And I think you touched on it later, and we'll get to that later and how they're going to start tailoring the offense to him, kind of that RPO style of offense he ran at Alabama. But before we get there, I want to break down the draft class like you did in your article. And the first guy you broke down was Waddle. And when I read it and when I went into it, the thing that stuck to me most was you saying, I think Waddle is more of an addition than the addition. And I want you to expand on that. And then I'll let Alec give his points on Waddle. But personally, I don't know. I'm in between. I think he is just an addition, but I also don't think he's the addition. I think he's in the middle. So give your point. Why do you think he's just another guy, another receiver?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first and biggest reason, obviously, is the quarterback. It goes back to everything does in an offense. Everything comes from that quarterback. It is it's the sun as far as we're concerned, and the line, the running backs, and the wide receivers, tight ends, et cetera, are the planets. So my thing with Waddle is, you could be Stephon Diggs, but if Tua cannot get you the ball, what is it worth? Nothing, really, in reality. So the first point is quarterback. So until we see more from Tua, I can't just, denote that Waddle's the best thing to ever touch the franchise and leave it at that. I can't do that in good conscience.
Yeah.
The second part of it is wide receivers on teams function best as units. I wholeheartedly believe that. When you look at some of the best teams in the league right now, their receiver cores function as units, and all within the unit are complementary of each other.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at this. Now, I believe he's an addition because he makes the wide receiver room in Miami better, significantly better, along with Will Fuller. But that's the right approach, is building it as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hypothetically say, what if the Vikings did not get Justin Jefferson? You would just have Adam Thielen in that wide receiver room. And I don't think that the Vikings would be better for it. I really don't.
Right.
And you look at some of the trends that are going on around the league where you have almost an NBA-esque transition going on, where you see the skill players on these teams have interest in building super teams.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Tom Brady do it in a very subtle way in Tampa last year. And so you've seen this time and time again this offseason. I've picked up on this on Twitter. There are superstar players on teams who are trying to build super teams, trying to lure Julio Jones to play with them, play with me here. A.J. Brown just did it a few days ago in Tennessee. So the thing I think of it is, and these wide receivers know it too, they're units. They're a collective weapon as much as they are, if not more, an individual weapon. So that's why I believe he's an addition, just as Stephon Diggs was, even though he's the best receiver in the league and he's the number one on this team. If he didn't have the other receivers around him, it wouldn't be as easy.
Right.
That's just, point blank fact.
I'm very glad I asked you this question, because just reading those words on paper, I interpreted it very differently. And this is what the writer's room every Sunday is going to do. It's going to allow us to expand on what we wrote about on a weekly basis. And that way it's not just up to interpretation what you're reading on paper. Because I saw an addition and I was like, Waddle slander? No way. He's better than that. But you explained it, and no, you're absolutely right. It's more of a cohesive unit approach. It's not just one guy is going to win you a championship or something like that. The wide receiver room has to work as a whole, and they all have to complement each other, like you said. Alec, what do you think, just general thoughts about Waddle? Does he scare you from a athletic standpoint, schematic standpoint, for what the Bills secondary is going to have to do?
The main reason he scares me is because he has history with Tua. He's caught balls from Tua before. They have chemistry together. And he's not just like your normal average receiver. He's a good receiver. He's gotten the touches. He has speed. He's got all the intangibles. He's going to be a weapon, but I completely agree with Eric. The room is more important than just the one player.
Yeah. It's funny, when my internship with Sports Info Solutions, the thing they taught me is you want to build out a wide receiver room like an NBA team. You want that like big man, that big bruiser, the guy that's going to go get 50-50s in football. You want that little guy, that quick, like short area quickness slot receiver. Then you want the straight line speed burner. So, I mean, I don't know if the Dolphins have like that full NBA team, but they've done a decent job. You think about Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. Those are probably those contested catch 50-50 guys. And then they bring in guys like Waddle and Will Fuller. Those are more the burner guys. And then I have no idea what the hell they're going to do with Jakeem Grant. I mean, I would say he's probably their like gadget slot guy, but I have no idea what the hell they're going to do with him.
Honestly, I think Brian Flores is trying to avoid building the Dolphins receiver room in the same way that Belichick failed to build the Patriots wide receiver room.
Interesting. You think he's going to just focus more on defense because he's a defensive mind?
That, but I also think that he's going to take kind of a Billsian approach with building rooms. We've kind of touched on this point. I think that he's less like Belichick in that regard and more like Sean McDermott. I think he understands the value of that type of approach.
Right.
We see this approach from all the best teams.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Chiefs. They have a unit style cohesion approach to winning games, and it works. Cleveland has done that now, where they've built a unit, which ironically is better without Odell Beckham in the lineup. So that just goes to show you again, it proves that unit point. That the sum of the parts is bigger than the individual one part.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to jump into the next player, at least that I wanted to focus on. and that's Liam Eichenberg. I'm skipping over Javon Holland, kind of just because I think he's a plug-and-play starter for them. I thought a safety was someone they needed to go target the Dolphins. They just had a weak safety class pretty much since they got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. It was a big hole in their defense. I don't think Bobby McCain was doing the job. So, yeah, I'm just going to skip over Javon Holland because I think we can all agree he's probably just going to be a plug-and-play starter for them, and we'll see what he can do from there. But Liam Eichenberg is interesting because I remember on the our draft coverage, Kevin was not too happy about that pick. And I was honestly shocked that he wasn't happy about it because you're drafting someone, he might be a middle-of-the-road tackle prospect, but it's someone to protect your franchise quarterback. So I'm really shocked that he was upset with it. I'm sure he's come around to it now. But Eric, what's your main point? What's your main takeaway from the Dolphins going with protection, after getting a weapon?
When I think of them drafting Liam Eichenberg, I think of a good, reliable general approach.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Bills drafting Spencer Brown, I think all pro in 5-6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's much different.
So it depends to me on what it is you're looking for when you make that selection. Now, in my analysis of what the Dolphins have done, I believe that they drafted Eichenberg so that they could take him and start him on day one and know that he's going to be ready for this. Now, he does need polish in his game. Yes, you can start him day one and will probably go reasonably well. However, he is not the most athletic tackle in the world, and he's designed best to fit a power gap run scheme. So that, I would bet you, is one of the reasons why Kevin was so concerned with this pick, because you don't want to confine yourself too much into a certain type of tactical, profile with the way you deploy your offense. And you better hope that Eichenberg can polish up his athleticism and work on that. Because if he can't, then that, again, it's another handicap for a player if he can't do that. And you'd hate to see that happen to, offensive line picks are, we say that they're expensive to pay. They're also expensive to pick because a lot of time and money and thought goes into trying to figure out which offensive lineman should we draft. So the question of value is still an expense for the team. And I think with Eichenberg, it's like, are we going to get our money's worth on this selection? I worry about him facing off against extremely fast pass rushers, explosive pass rushers.
Yeah.
You look at a guy like Jerome Baker, who's on the Dolphins. That's the type of pass rusher I think he would struggle with. You look at, depending on how Rousseau's development goes, that's the kind of pass rusher he would struggle with.
Right.
He does not have the ability to withstand and hold that block beyond the first step. He can anchor at the first step, but if he gets beaten off that first step, he can't recover.
Right.
So I think for the Dolphins, it's can we modify this guy a little bit? Can we get him a little bit more developed? If not, to me, then I would be at the same concern level that Kevin was.
All right, so
it's just a question of where can we go with this guy's development. And what's interesting, by the way, before I let you go, is with the spy articles in the offseason, it's going to be really cool to see how these age.
Yeah.
And I said this in the first one when I came out with the Steelers one. Down the road, maybe during a bye week next season, I'm going to go back and address how these aged. After, because when is the Bills bye week again?
I think it's late. No, it's early. It's like week 6
I want to say week
7.
6 or 7. I want to say 6 or 7.
Because it's after the Chiefs and the Titans matchups.
Okay, and the reason why I asked that is we can let a few games go by, see where all these players are at that we've written spy articles on in the offseason, and kind of grade them on how they've done.
Right.
And then we can get a good gauge for how did this turn out? How accurate was it? Was it a good approach for these teams? Things like that.
Right. So, Alec, do you have any impressions on the Liam Eichenberg pick?
Yeah, so he was saying he's more of a power run kind of tackle, but the Dolphins' run game last year was not great. Mm-hmm. So they needed to address that a little bit. So I think that pick also, even if he's not a day one starter, I think down the road that will end up helping them in the run game. And like you said, going against a pass rusher like Jerome Baker, that's going to help him too, gaining some athleticism, always getting the reps against good athletic pass rushers like that.
Right. Yeah, nothing like practicing against good guys.
Right.
Getting those consistent reps every day, every week. My initial thoughts on the Eichenberg thing, it makes me kind of curious about what they did in the 2020 draft, because they ended up picking Austin Jackson in the first round with their 18th pick in the first round last year. And I think he's starting at left tackle for them, but starting at right tackle was Robert Hunt, who I believe played guard in college, and he played right tackle for them last year, or at least down the stretch last year. So makes me think they want to get Hunt back in his natural position, and they want to put Eichenberg either on the left or right side, depending on how they feel about Austin Jackson, their former first-round draft pick. But I really want to jump into your next point in the article where you say, I don't want to touch on any of these other guys because they essentially, this is what you say. This is my just kind of how I interpret it. I don't want to touch on any of these other guys because they don't really scare me. They don't frighten me. And the one name that came to mind for me was Hunter Long, and our own Sports Rock 2, Ryan Sullivan, had his own man crush on Hunter Long this pre-draft process. So I'm just curious, why didn't you include Hunter Long?
First of all, if I were to have written about Hunter Long, I think Kevin would refuse to work with me on any future writing venture in the history of Buffalo Fanatics. I mean, hell could freeze over and we could be in the next millennium in another universe, and Kevin would still not work with me if I wrote about Hunter Long. There's some bad blood there that's just never going to dry, never going to heal. So if you want Kevin to love Hunter Long, I hate to break it to you, it's just not going to happen. But the real reason why I didn't write about Hunter Long is because I don't believe in rookie tight ends. I don't, unless your name is Kyle Pitts, and then I have some measure of confidence in you. But rookie tight ends historically do not perform well in the NFL, and this goes back decades. I mean, all the numbers are there, all the statistics are there, and the Dolphins have Mike Gesicki. He's the TE1. He's going to get thrown the ball. He's going to do most of the tight end work, and he's not going to give it up, barring significant injury.
No, that's an excellent point.
I'm not going to I don't think that the Bills are going to waste much time on a guy like Hunter Long either. So if they're not, I'm not. And so it's one of those things to where there's much more pressing concerns than Hunter Long, no offense.
Alec, you got anything to add on Hunter Long?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, the rookie tight end thing, I completely agree with. They're not great in their rookie seasons. Like he said, all the stats are there to back it up. That's what I look at all the time. Analytics, that's perfect. Yeah. Also, the Gesicki thing. Gesicki is a great tight end. Great hands, great size, great speed. Everything about him is just, you look at him, he's an athletic monster. He's a great tight end. There's no way that, unless, like you said, barring injury, he's going to get in.
He's a good culture guy, too. I mean, Gesicki's the kind of tight end the Bills would love to have.
Facts.
Yeah, it seems it, for sure. So my one point of contention on this whole thing with Hunter Long is really just that the Bills struggled defending tight ends, and it almost makes me think that the Dolphins made this pick specifically with the Bills in mind. And I agree with you guys. I don't think Hunter Long is unseating Mike Gesicki from T1 or anything like that. I'm starting to think about 12 personnel where they're both on the field at the same time, because we know Gesicki's more of a pass catcher, not much of a blocker. Mm-hmm. So I could see them, lining up in run formations, but passing out of those run formations. Can Tua do that? Tua might be, we don't know. There's so many questions with Tua. So, you're absolutely right to say that and ask, can he do that? But, I mean,
it's different with the Patriots.
Yeah, exactly. With the Patriots, two proven commodities. It's Cam Newton. We know he can roll out in the pocket, make those kind of
and that's
play
a throw
action
he still
throws.
Can make. is those
True.
short throws to tight ends.
True.
Still
But
do that.
what I will say is I think Tua is at his best when he's moving and he's kind of, he's making throws on the run, like scripted, easy outside of the pocket throws. So I think those kind of like play action boot plays, I think those might be up his alley, and getting Long and Gesicki in at the same time with, say, a Fuller and a Parker out wide, that could be scary. Or it could be Waddle now. Like, I don't know, threat wise in terms of who we have to guard in a 12 personnel formation for the Dolphins, it could be tough for us to combat. So that's really the only reason I wanted to bring up Hunter Long.
I think you brought up a great point. I completely agree with you. And another thing that I can bring up to segue off of your last point is how many of these young quarterbacks coming into the league now do we see that are these off-script magicians that prefer to be dynamic movers and make their plays that way? Let's face it, the pocket quarterback is almost dead as a concept, if not extinct.
Right.
With the exception of Tom Brady, who's going to play until the year 3029. But anyway, most of these young quarterbacks coming out of college, and we know that the NFL is more and more like college every single day, they are movers, they're shakers, they're dynamic. And I don't know about you, but I went back and watched some Tua tape. I feel like he almost panics when he's standing still.
Yeah, a little bit.
I feel like when he's standing still, he turns into a scarecrow. He can't move, he can't think, he can't see. But when he's moving, just like you said, Kendall, he's almost in the zone, as if that puts him in some sort of different space of mind.
Yeah.
But if you watch him when he's standing still, he's not comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely can echo some of those feelings. I think there's parts of his game where he's really only good in the pocket if it's scripted and it's schemed up for him. Other than that, his improvisational magic or his ability to get outside the pocket and make plays that way is where he's going to excel at the next level, at least until he improves. So I'm going to move on to the threat rating. But before I let you explain your threat rating, I'm going to ask Alec his first impressions on the 2021 Miami Dolphins. 1 out of 10 using Eric's arbitrary threat rating scale. What do you give them?
I mean, honestly, I'm giving them a 7 or an 8. Like, they're going to be one of the more scary teams this year. They're not a team to play with. They have a lot of talent. They have a good defense. Tua's still young. You don't know how he's going to develop this year. You don't know how his offseason was. This is also going to be his first offseason with training camp, OTAs, all that stuff. So
great point.
This is going to be a huge season for him. This is a make or break season, in my opinion.
And he has a beard now, as we pointed out on Twitter. So there's that too.
Before I get to Eric, Eric alluded earlier saying that he has their threat rating higher than the Patriots. Alec, would you have them higher than the Patriots right now?
Yeah, honestly, I would. Even though the Patriots got all that talent back on defense and they still have, like, Bill Belichick, probably one of the greatest coaches of all time, I still don't see a lot of threat in their offense. Their offense is very one-dimensional. It's a lot of run game. We're going to try to pound the ball down your throat. Cam Newton can't really air the ball down the field anymore. It's not that dynamic.
Right. Totally agree. So, Eric, you want to go in depth on your threat rating a little more than you already have, or you got anything else to say?
So I have a series of spreadsheets that I made with Excel, and what I do in these spreadsheets is I assemble different things with these teams in terms of statistics and stuff like that.
Cool.
Shrek knows what I'm talking about here, but you're basically just doing a little bit of comparative analysis.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I do all that fun stuff, and then what happens is I take what the numbers that I get from that, and then I kind of translate them into a score on the 1 to 10 scale. And then those numbers, which I combine from all three phases of the football game, so special teams, defense, offense, those will combine to create a ranking. So the Dolphins ended up getting 4 points on offense. They ended up getting 4 points on defense. And with special teams, I kind of considered that a non-ranking thing because of Danny Crossman. I don't want to touch it. That for me is I don't want to go anywhere near it. And they don't need to be any higher than 8, so they get an 8. and that 4 on defense, 4 on offense. And also my general philosophy is that special teams, while important, is a dying thing in the NFL.
Interesting.
I have my own theories on that, but I think that special teams is a dying breed.
Interesting. I can't say I agree, but I understand. Like I do, especially with like the phasing out of kick returns and stuff like that. I totally get it. I
don't know if anybody's ready for a hot prediction on a Sunday, holiday weekend on the first writers' room of the offseason, but I think in 10 to 15 years there will be no more special teams.
Oh, it'd be so sad. Think about the jobs lost. Honestly, like you know what I mean? Like a lot of guys make rosters around the NFL by special teams. Like Bam Johnson. Oh my God.
I just think we know how money oriented, money focused this league is.
Yeah.
We know how the NFL is not the MLB. The NFL does, and will change the game. 1, to make more money, 2, to increase viewership, and 3, to keep it going. Keep it going.
Everything all 3 points have to do about money.
Exactly. Can you take me higher? Goodell's asking that all the time in those meetings. What can you do for me? Can you put more money in the league's pocket? And that's one way you can do it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And it's with the way special teams goes and the injuries and how it's, there are even statistics. I don't know, Shrek, I'm sure you've seen some stuff like this, but viewership drops during special team situations.
Between games.
Especially in traumatized cities, like, for example, in Chicago, when special teams are on the field, it drops by huge margins.
Oh, man. How dare you?
And
I just have a question.
There was a survey taken of Green Bay fans about with the kicking last year in the NFC Championship. And they were all, I'm not going to even watch it anymore. So, it's a sad thing, but my threat rating, I felt it was most important to look at the offense and the defense because that's what's going to matter most.
Right.
And for me, I agree with Alec. The Dolphins are a serious team. I do think they're going to be a wild card team. I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think they are a real substantial threat to the Bills.
Mm-hmm. Alec, you had a question there?
Yeah, so I was just curious what you thought. So if we're going to get rid of special teams, like what do you think they're going to do for PATs? Every team's going to go for 2 at that point. What about field goals, punts, stuff like that?
So I've heard some interesting ideas for this kind of stuff, and this is just in conversation and stuff like that. Bullish Bill, start ST like a rugby scrum. That's an interesting idea. I like it. So for PATs and let's say you're going for field goals, I'll start with that one. So if you're on 4th down and you're going for a field goal, this is already an idea that's been brought up at NFL ownerships meetings. So all you guys watching, this one that I'm bringing up now is actually a real one. This is not something that I just came up with ad hoc. But the whole the whole thing is, let's say you've got a 4th and 10 on the opponent's 30-yard line.
Okay.
You can, instead of doing a field goal, you can choose to take essentially another down. You can have an extra down, but you have to go back on the field. So you have to go back 25 yards, but you get a 4th and 1.
Interesting.
Okay.
So they make you back up. They make you back up, but you get a 4th and 1.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like that.
Big wrinkle.
And then you can get a new set of downs.
Right.
Wow.
But if you don't, you just lost 25 yards.
Yeah, seriously. Talk about field position battle. Wow, that's interesting. Totally flips it on its head.
Right. And then another thing, if you want to talk about field position, look at this rule that just passed the other day. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but for all you guys watching, I just want to bring it up. They modified the block below the waist rule outside in the open field. So now that's a 15-yard enforceable penalty. So the NFL is getting more aggressive with the field position game by modifying the way the game is played, which goes to further the point I'm trying to make. They will modify the crap out of the game to make it more interesting.
Make more money.
Every year they do it. even something as simple as the jersey numbers
Yeah.
Yeah,
can change the way the game is played.
Right.
I mean, I didn't think so when they first said they were going to do it, but then I listened to some defenders on the Athlete podcast talk about how the numbers matter in terms of where you're looking and why you're looking there and who that might be and what they're doing and the knock-on snowball effect that carries.
Yeah.
But don't doubt for a second, the NFL could find creative ways to do PATs, to do fourth downs, punts, all that kind of stuff. Things that would make paradigm shifts in the game of football that, quite frankly, would take us a long time to be able to deal with and comprehend. And then it would fall on us to explain this all to all the fanatics out there. So just think about it. That in and of itself would be a fun thing to do.
Oh man, it would be fun. It would be nuts. Imagine kickoffs, like backyard kickoffs where it's just like some quarterback chucking the football as far as possible. PATs turn into a quarterback trying to throw it through uprights.
Oh.
It could be nuts. But yeah, we're all for it apparently. You know, I'd like to see special teams stay, but it seems like the writing's on the wall. It seems like it is starting to be phased out more and more.
Just try not to be get off my lawn guy because I know it doesn't work. You know, you just can't stop time again unless you're Tom Brady. Geez, but you just can't stop it. So you might as well get with it if you can.
Yeah, and that's part of it.
Join them.
All right, so we're gonna move on to Alex. Both of his pieces. We said we were only gonna cover the defensive alignments and techniques, but they're both rather quick, and we can apply them both to the Bills. Really, just the long and short of it, both of them, you guys should read them. I'll toss the comment, or I'll toss the link into the comment section. Both of them are great informational pieces, kind of breaking down just like where we talk about, we talk about ad nauseum, like, the Bills need a one tech. And I'm sure not everyone knows what a one tech means. Read Alex's article. Like, you will understand what it means to be a one tech defensive tackle versus a three tech defensive tackle, and all of the other technique alignments on the defensive line. And then he also, I think the blitz and stunts one was the most recent one, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that was this week.
Yeah. So, and then he also breaks down off of defensive alignment and techniques how you can run stunts and blitzes and the different ways that you can do that just on the basic level. God knows if the Bills are going to start using it.
You guys like pedantic detail? Read Alex stuff. I tell you what. And me and him wrote an article on Rousseau and Basham.
Yep.
So if that's the kind of stuff you're into and you like this level of detail, you want to learn a little bit more about the game, go read Alex stuff.
For sure.
Because it is top notch.
So, Alec, you want to break down the gaps in assignments, or the defensive line techniques first?
Yeah, sure. So, like you guys were saying, I just thought about it like not everybody knows about what the A gap is, what the D gap is, what a one tech is, what a three tech is, stuff like that. So I thought, let's inform the people, give them something to learn about. So I started out by breaking down all the numbers 0 through 9, excluding 8. I don't know why they exclude 8, but 8's excluded. That's the techniques. So it all starts on the center with 0. The center, head up on the center, is a 0 technique. And that just means you're pretty much playing a nose tackle. You won't see that in a 4-man front. You'll see it in a 3 or a 5.
Right.
So you're not going to really see that in the Bills defense. You're going to see more of a 1 and a 3, which means your one tech will be playing on the weak side of the offensive line. So you find the weak side by counting the players on each side of the line and figuring out which side has more. That will be the strong side. Your strong side has a 3 tech defensive tackle who will be assigned to B gap. And in your one tech on the other side, you'll have an A gap assigned to him. Your middle linebacker, one of your middle linebackers will have the other strong side A gap opposite of your defensive tackle one tech. Like I said, your 3 tech has strong side B gap. Another linebacker will have weak side B gap, and so on and so forth, getting to defensive ends. And once you get into tight ends, you get a couple more techniques, a couple more gaps, but it's all relatively simple. Just numbering. Head up is even, and your 2 outside shoulders are odd numbers.
Right. So exactly like you said, we're probably not going to have that 0 tech, but I mean, honestly, we were all talking about Tyler Shelvin this offseason as that guy we wanted. He was playing 0 tech at LSU in a 3-4 3-man front, I should say. So because he played zero tech, it seemed like he would have been able to play that 4-man front at 1 tech. And of course, we didn't really do anything like that and add someone in that area. And now it's up to Star and Horrible Harry to fill that void, or at least, improve on what the play was at 1 tech last year.
I don't know what Shrek feels about that, but I am extremely dissatisfied and concerned with the interior Bills line.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I have a prediction. I don't think that Star Lotulelei is going to make it past week 6.
Yeah, we saw you. I remember I saw you talking about this and arguing with Ryan in the chat about this. And I mean, I see both sides of it, because you're absolutely right from a like kinesiology, a sports science kind of background. Like, absolutely. Right. If this dude isn't working on a football level, as much as he could be staying in shape in the offseason, nothing compares to competing with your teammates in the facilities and on the practice field. Nothing compares. Right. So I don't want to say
and he's not at OTAs.
Exactly.
And that was talked about on the Air Raid Hour this past week. I think it's absurd. It's ridiculous. If I was Sean McDermott, I'd be on the phone with some choice words. For Star Lotulelei.
Yeah, I'm very.
And
back
he's a leader
and
on this team, or he's supposed to be.
Right. I'm very back and forth on it. Alec, what do you think about the Star absence?
I mean, he's a veteran, so I mean, a lot of veterans aren't going to show up to OTAs, but still, I mean, not playing for 2 years and not showing up to OTAs to get back in shape with the team, get reacquainted, and do all that stuff, that is kind of concerning. But I mean, like I said, he's a veteran. It's going to happen. As long as he shows up to training camp and all that stuff, and he's at a healthy weight, got a healthy body, and he's got the footwork and the speed and all that stuff still going for him, and he's in football shape, I think we will be okay. But there is a true possibility that won't happen, though.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, Eric, like that is my concern. Like, I think he's going to be in shape to contribute in week 1 and, get his feet under him by the time, training camp's over and we're into preseason, stuff like that. But I do I do have concerns about longevity throughout the season, because it will catch up to him, especially having, a year off of football and then not, having that football exercise, that football level of exercise and push behind him. So
Le'Veon Bell talked about this,
right?
When he left the game and then came back, and that's possibly the best example I can think of.
Right. Yeah.
It's
a little different because of position, but you are right.
He talked about, but he said in his words about it, he said, as an athlete, which is why I deem it to be compatible with Star, because they're both athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But, fitness is what I do for a living. So, I mean, this is my profession. But it's a simple fact of if what you're trying to do is play an entire season for a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl now, you need to be there.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah, that's
it's
the most
different
part.
And I've had say, is it different for Diggs? Are you freaking out about Diggs? No, I'm not. He's Stephon Diggs. He's training every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he played last year, and he played in the AFC Championship. Stephon Diggs knows that wide receiver room like the back of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He knows all of his offensive counterparts like the back of his hand. Star, there's so many new players on this team. Star doesn't even know this defense anymore. So, and, he's expected to come in here and play with these guys, and he has no idea of their tendencies. He has no idea of their habits.
Right.
He has no idea of their weaknesses, strengths.
Yeah. So I'll play devil's advocate here. I agree with you. He is going to be unfamiliar with the personnel. However, he is extremely familiar with the Sean McDermott defense. Yep. So I think in terms of schematics, he's not gonna miss a beat in terms of what his assignment is on a play-to-play basis. But there is something to be said about continuity and cohesiveness in terms of defensive and offensive line. You got to know those guys that you're playing with, and how this is actually a perfect segue into blitzes and stunts, because you got to know what everyone else is doing around you.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
like you think about it, like, yes, I don't think they're ever going to run a stunt where Star is going around an offensive tackle or anything like
never.
that. But still, he's got to know if someone's stunting inside, and he has to work in unison with that man. So honestly, let's get right into it. Alec, what do you want to break down generally? We'll get more in depth about blitzes and stunts, but generally, what do you have to say about your article on that and how it could be used for the Buffalo Bills in 2021?
Yeah, so I believe with our rookie rushers and all the other edge rushers we have a lot of outside speed. We have a lot of speed out there. We have a lot of athleticism, young players. I believe we can use them on inside stunts. Gregory Rousseau, when he was in college, the 1 year he played at Miami, he played a lot of inside technique. He knows how to win inside. So, and that's where most of its production came from, was on the inside. I believe stunning him inside is going to be a huge part of our defense in this upcoming season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Clay and I break down Boogie Basham yesterday, and then Rousseau the week before.
Yep.
But I watched both, the whole thing. And
both those guys,
were looking at too.
Both those guys, like, they're gonna stunt inside, or even if they're not, like, they are more than capable of doing it. And I really hope that the Bills actually get creative with how they're going to rush the passer, because in the past, we've seen the Leslie Frazier defense just say, okay, let's play coverage, keep everything in front of us, and just rush that front four. And that's that. Mm-hmm. And a little bit more, as the years have moved on and he gets more comfortable with McDermott, you kind of see some more wrinkles being added. You see them dropping people like Mario Addison and like Jerry Hughes and AJ Epinesa into coverage, and then blitzing an Edmonds and a Milano to replace those two guys dropping into coverage. So you see a little bit more creativity, but I don't know about you guys. I don't want to see those guys dropping into coverage so much. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just see them get creative with the front four rushing.
I mean, one could argue that that's why they drafted those players.
Exactly, right?
And we've seen this time and time again over McDermott's tenure here in Buffalo. He is not afraid to adapt and learn. And the value of that characteristic in a coach cannot be overstated. It's incredibly important. He's still learning and still adapting. And, Kendall, I think you make a good point. It's highly plausible that they drafted these players in order to provide that type of proliferation of their tactical profile.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, right now we can do X and Y, but we wanted to be able to do Z if we want to.
Right. And I keep getting in this conversation with Kevin about it, because he keeps labeling Basham and Rousseau as 5-techs. And I agree with him. Their perfect fit is a 5-tech. Like, that is perfectly in terms of how they win against one-on-one blocks and how they're sculpted as athletes. They are perfectly suited for 5-techs. But there's a reason McDermott and Frazier are going after guys with this kind of profile. It's because they have a vision. There's a reason they went after Quentin Jefferson in free agency last year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he said on Twitter, like, he was being played out of position, but we know his position isn't like 3-tech, 1-tech. He's someone that can reduce down into that role. That's not his primary role. So that's why I think there's something to be said about maybe the Bills are trying to get more creative with their pass rush and not just, okay, stick to your straight lane and that's that. Maybe
if I were you, Kendall, I would predict. If I were you, Kendall, I would predict a high likelihood of that.
Yeah, put it out there. I'm not one to get into the hot take predictions thing.
If you look at let's look at some proof of concept. Look at when the Buffalo Bills came out with the K gun. Nobody saw that coming.
Right.
And that was purpose built to deploy as a weapon that took the league by storm. So these kinds of things happen, and so I think it's fascinating the way that you guys have outlined this, and Rousseau and Basham I think are perfect candidates for that kind of proliferation of the defense. And let's be honest, they got to do something.
Yeah, we do need some production. We need a lot of production on the outside.
Right,
pressure is great, but what have you done for me lately? Kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, got to get to the quarterback.
Can you get a finger on a jersey? Maybe can we get we get any kind of contact or what?
Gotta affect the passer, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of goes into my second point. If you guys think we're going to get more creative with the pass rush, do you think we're going to phase out the linebacker blitz a little bit more? Because I don't know so much about the tail end of the season, but I think there was a point in the season where we were trying to get Klein more involved because obviously Milano was injured. And to get Klein more involved, it meant we can't just keep him in that Milano role. It meant we had to blitz him, and that meant dropping a defensive end or someone into coverage. And obviously, I think we all know that Milano is one of the better 8-gap blitzers from a linebacking standpoint in the league. He really gets after it. Do you see a reduction, Alec? I'll start with you first. Do you see a reduction in linebacker blitzing this year because there may be more of a creative 4-man front pass rush?
Honestly, blitzing last year in the middle of the pack, it kind of upset me because we weren't able to make that pressure.
Yeah,
I believe this year we're going to end up bringing more pressure. We're going to end up bringing more people towards the passer. We're going to be trying to create pressure. We need those sacks, those tackles for losses, all those statistics. We need it. That was the big part of our defense that was struggling, was our pass rush. We addressed it with Bastrom and Russo, but they're young. They might not be able to do it by themselves yet. Yeah. They might need some help. I believe that's where we get our experienced linebacking core and let them rush the passer with them, let them get some easy opportunities to get some first quality sacks, get them going.
Right. Eric?
I agree with Alec, and I'd also add that last year our safety and corner blitzes were more effective than linebacker blitzes were by a huge margin statistically.
Yeah.
And I believe that league-wide, that is a trend that we're going to see proliferate. Safeties and corners are going to be blitzing a lot more. We're going to keep seeing that, and that's a new trend that I'm really paying attention to heading into 2021. It's of great interest to me personally because I think it's quite fascinating to see that. I think that we're going to see more of that too from the Bills in terms of safety and corner blitzes, and the Bills are really good at it.
Yeah, you got me thinking back to that Broncos game with the Tre'Davious White strip sack and then Jerry Hughes scoop and score off that strip sack. So that actually kind of segues into my next question. If we're going to keep blitzing in that way, do you see this negatively impacting the secondary? Because if you take guys out of coverage, it's going to impact the secondary in terms of just how many guys are dropping into coverage from a volume perspective. Do you think it's going to affect them in terms of a efficiency perspective?
I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do kind of what the Bucs did last season, which was they were bullies from the secondary. They were jamming guys at the line and throwing people around and even being dirty.
Yeah, the Bills don't do a lot of that.
And they would get penalties and not even care one bit because they'd say, we'll hold you all day long and we'll interfere with you all day long. When you get down in the red zone, you won't be able to do anything because your receivers will be beat up from fighting us at the line.
Yeah, they'll be tired. That's a long day.
And if you're going to keep doing that, if you're the Bills and you're going to keep safety blitzing and you're going to keep corner blitzing, well, you better be roughing guys up off the line.
Right.
You better be getting in there and getting after it and getting nasty if that's what you're going to do. And I hated it. I hated the AFC Championship because the Bills did not be aggressive from the secondary. They didn't send corner and safety blitzes and get in their grill because the Bucs did.
Yeah.
And Levi might not jam anybody, but who will? Dane Jackson.
Yeah, that was where I was gonna go with that comment, Jason. You're absolutely right, Jason. Levi Wallace probably isn't that kind of guy who's gonna jam people. Not to say he's not physical enough to do it. I just don't think he could recover if he got beat off that initial press coverage. If he gets beat, he doesn't have the straight line speed to catch up with someone. He's not the greatest in trail technique. But Dane, I mean, Dane's in a similar boat where it's not like he's a burner or anything like that. He's not an athletic specimen, but he's certainly a lot more physical. So I have a little more confidence in terms of his ability to jam a guy off the line of scrimmage and at least, delay that initial route and therefore make it easier for the pass rush to get there. Because if you're jamming the routes, it means the quarterback has to wait longer for those routes to develop. Hold the ball longer, pass rush can get there. So It's all connected, man. Pass rush versus coverage. I'll actually ask you guys, where do you guys lean on that? Pass rush versus pass coverage. Do you guys lean a specific way? One's more important than the other? Because I think the Bills lean more towards pass rush.
I mean, I think Alec can speak to this, but we've seen a rise in the interest in coverage sacks,
right?
In terms of statistical analysis and statistics collection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's extremely important, and I don't think that the secondary gets enough credit in this regard. I think it's very valuable to look at the secondary not just as a pass defending entity, but as a quarterback disrupting entity. So what do you think about that, Alec?
I completely agree. Like, the coverage game is huge. If you can hold teams out of being able to complete simple passes, make quarterbacks hold on to the ball just a little bit longer, that gives the defensive line opportunities to win off the line. And we were great at that last year. We were top 3 in the NFL in winning off the line last year. So it was just, we just had a problem finishing. So give us a little bit more time off the line. And with these athletic young pass rushers, I think it's going to be a real problem. They're going to be getting to the quarterback. Even if you don't get there, just getting your hands up, getting in the passing lanes, making it hard for him to do anything.
And again, look at the Bucs against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Hyper aggressive in the secondary. And it was toying with the Chiefs' mentality on offense. And it was forcing Mahomes to have to literally become Superman.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So even the best quarterback in the league couldn't rise to the occasion because of the way that Bucs defense was playing him. And I've said this before, and I've said it again. I'll say it again. The Bucs defensive game plan in the Super Bowl was an absolute masterpiece.
It was a gem.
Like, it was the Mona Lisa of 2020 defensive, productions. It was.
Yeah, no one did well on defense in 2020.
Right.
Yeah, it was as top notch as top notch gets.
It was a clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've gone back and I've watched it over and over again, and I wish and hope and pray that the Bills will emulate that. And I think they are. If you look at their draft choices, if you look at some of the things that have been said, I think that is where they're leaning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting because, part of this conversation is we're talking about how pass coverage affects pass rush. And I think that's obviously why a lot of us wanted to see the Bills go cornerback 2 earlier than they did. And I don't even know if Rashad Wildgoose is going to be cornerback 2. That's the reason we were all clinging on to that. Put someone next to Tre'Davious, make it easier for that pass rush to get there. But there's 2 sides to this coin, and pass rush is part of it, So if you're going to disrupt the quarterback in the way that they want to with pass rush, that means it might be easier for our secondary to make plays on the ball when, someone's throwing under duress. So it goes both ways, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this Bills defense is going to evolve in 2021. And really, hopefully, they can get back to their 2019 form. Because if they do that and match what they did in 2020 on offense, even if they don't even get better on offense this coming year, but get better on defense, it's scary. It really is, because that makes us a complete team.
Right. We have the special teams locked down too. We have a great special teams.
We do. Despite the fact that it might be gone in a couple years, we have a great special teams unit. That is true.
Indeed.
All right. So we're almost an hour in. Is there a topic that you guys want to talk about? Obviously, there's not a lot going on in the NFL right now. Obviously, there's the Julio Jones sweepstakes. There's stuff going on with OTA news. We touched the star stuff. Is there anything you guys want to talk about specifically?
I have something, and it involves the Bills specifically. I'm sure it involves other teams too, but I'm not really locked into other teams. So I'll just keep it confined to the Bills. But I know that we're in a tough time right now as a society, and I know that things are very stressful. Things are very, needlessly, I'd argue, aggressive on social media. I've seen a lot of stuff about the vaccine and players' choices and the league's guidance, what rules, whatever you want to call it, whatever nomenclature you want to assign to it. It's become an issue now. And let's take the McDermott approach here, and let's keep football. Let's talk about football, right?
Right.
I mean, whether or not we have an opinion, I'm sorry, but Stephon Diggs is not listening to me. And he's not listening to you. I mean, right. And Josh Allen said it, and he said it multiple times, and he said it for a reason. We as players are having these discussions.
Mm-hmm.
He's the leader of that team. It's pretty obvious that the players are having these discussions behind closed doors in players-only meetings, and that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
And whatever choices they make, they're going to do it as a team because that's what the Buffalo Bills do.
Right.
And they're going to do what's for the greater good of the team and all of that good stuff. What we cannot have and what I don't want to see anymore is this vitriol and violence and the terrible hatred attitude that I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, Bills Mafia, be better. I have seen all of us be better. You know, that wing at Oshai Hospital that's dedicated to Patricia Allen, that's the Bills Mafia that we can be. I do not want to see people talking about how Cole Beasley can't make the correct vaccine decision because he has head injury. That's atrocious.
Yeah.
I have a traumatic brain injury from my service in the Marine Corps. So does that mean that I'm not rational either? So, you know, let's stop all the vitriol and hatred. The only way, and Pierre, the creator, the founder, and the valiant leader of Buffalo Fanatics has said this time and time again, positivity is the way.
It is.
It is.
Positivity is the way. Growth mindset is the way. And I know you guys have all heard us talk about that because Sean McDermott says it every 2 minutes. But growth mindset is the way forward. So be positive, be encouraging, have an optimistic, approach to the things that you do. We all want this Buffalo Bills team to be something that we look forward to, something that we love and embrace. We have compassion for it, hopes for it. It makes our days better. It allows us to have time with our families. It's something that so many people build relationships on. I mean, many of us have met each other and networked because of this Bills team.
Right.
Yep.
We're here on YouTube right now having this opportunity because of this Bills team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, count your lucky stars that we have a team to talk about. Be thankful that we have all this to talk about. And how terrible would life have been this past year if we didn't have the Bills?
Oh my God. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
imagine that 2020 season, right? Like everything so bad about the past year. And then the little light that we got with the Buffalo Bills finally being as successful as we wanted them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, be supportive of each other and of these players. Be optimistic and be positive. That's my message. Okay.
Right.
And if you really want to see how the other half lives, go talk to a Sabres fan. Because, and let me say this one last thing. You guys better hope that the Sabres get this figured out. Because if that does blow up, and I mean it already has, but if it really goes thermonuclear, guess what? It's going to blow back on the Bills.
Yeah. Same ownership. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I'll echo that a little bit just by saying, like, you can disagree with someone's choice. Like, it's okay to not have the same opinion as someone. There's just no need to get up all in someone's face and rattle them about their decision like people did with the Cole Beasley situation. It's okay to disagree with what he's thinking, but who's to say he won't change his mind in the future? The fact of the matter is, if you come at him with aggression like they did, it's probably just going to sink his feet deeper into his stance than he currently is. He's not going to change it more when you're meeting him with negativity. You need to just understand where he's coming from. He's trying to get the facts. It's okay. Once he gets the facts, he'll make his decision. And that's that. We can't influence that decision. He's above us at the end of the day. Like you said, Stephon Diggs isn't listening to us. These guys aren't listening to us. Do they care what the fans think of them? Of course. But this is a bigger decision than what the fans think. This is about their bodies. So
if Joe Schmo tells them to jump, they're not going to say how high.
Right. Exactly.
So
that's fair.
It's pretty simple like that. And kick it back to grade school if you want. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Absolutely. That is the mindset that we should be going with. But God knows Twitter doesn't abide by that rule.
Yeah, no.
All right, guys. This was great. Alec, you got anything to add on to that? I'm not going to make you talk on the vaccine if you don't want to.
I mean, I completely agree with what you guys said. Like, it's their choice. You guys can't really push on them. Let them make their decision. there's so many. They take so many COVID tests. They go through so much stuff in the locker rooms, in the facilities, all that stuff before they even get on the field. That some of them probably think they don't need the vaccine because we have all these tests. We're so careful. We're watching ourselves. We're doing all this stuff to keep ourselves safe.
And I can tell you, as an athlete, as a strength coach, as a personal trainer, as somebody who's trained athletes before, I can tell you that these guys are highly conscious about what goes into their body.
Yep.
Some of these guys don't even use plastic straws because they have toxic compounds in them. So, I mean, these guys are extremely concerned with their bodies. And that goes for everything, even down to the most trivial things that we would never think about. You know, like what kind of toothpaste they use. I mean, this stuff, I'm serious. Like, this stuff matters to these athletes.
Yeah.
What is going into my body and what can it do? And one of the reasons why is because, you know, the drug testing panels that professional athletes undergo are extremely detailed. And so if you're going to take a new multivitamin, or you're going to take a new workout supplement, or this or that or the other thing, as a strength coach, as a guy like me, it falls on me to know that product inside and out. Because if I'm going to recommend that product to a client, and all these guys have strength coaches, by the way, on the Bills and independently. So if these guys are going to do anything, it's got to go through their coach. And so that's this. I just want to kind of give you guys a feel for the fact that this stuff goes so much deeper. The onion has so many layers. So, I mean, just think about that next time before name calling and all that other crap. You know, just think about how deep does this really go, right? Because I mean, everybody's a subject matter expert at something. True. You know, so if I was to ask, if I want to know something, I'm just going to ask somebody instead of being like, well, that's stupid. I don't, whatever.
No, you're right. These guys, their moneymaker is their body. Like athletes, their body is their moneymaker. So they should be very thorough about what they put into their body. You made the point about straws. That's the point. Like it is their body. It is their decision. Obviously, we can disagree with that decision, but it's not going to impact them. It's their decision at the end of the day. So to get off that and get onto a more positive note, guys.
Julio, yes or no?
Oh, God, don't make me. Don't do that. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. No, I wanted to ask you guys, how'd you think first one went? First writer's room. What do you think?
I don't think it could have been better.
Nice. I'm excited. I'm excited to do it again. I really am. It's going to be a good off season. I know it's a dead point in the off season, but man, we are working hard in the writer's room, and you can find all of our work at thebuffalofanatics.com. It's not just us three. There's a lot of other guys working hard to produce content on the site, on the blog. Yeah, really every single day. So show your support literally just by clicking on our articles and reading them. It shows your support. You don't have to be like that uppity guy being all nice in the comment section or anything like that. All you have to do is just show your support by clicking on it and reading it. And it really does. It goes a long way. So it's more than just us. You can find great content out there on the site. It's more than just you seeing us on YouTube and all the other YouTube live shows. Like there's a lot to this Buffalo Fanatics operation. And part of it is the writers' room. So you're gonna get to know more of the writers throughout this off season, and we're gonna do a great job producing content when there's not a lot of content to produce. Because let's face it, there's not a lot going on in this off season right now. But we're gonna give it to you, and we're gonna give it to you straight. So
Buffalo
I hope
Fanatics
you guys
is always going on.
Yeah, always.
One last thing, Kendall, if we're gonna wrap it up here. One last thing, if I may. I know it's a holiday weekend. I hope you guys are all enjoying it, but tomorrow is Memorial Day. As a Marine veteran, I just want to say, just take a minute to just remember what the day is about, please.
Great point.
I would do with it whatever you want. Our Constitution gives us the right to drink Budweiser, shoot off fireworks, do whatever you want, have a blast, but just take a minute to remember what the day is about, and the fact that a lot of my ancestors, brothers in arms, sisters in arms, gave their lives so that we can have this holiday and we can have this YouTube and have this show. So, just even if it's just a minute, just take a minute to remember what the day is about. Please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great way to close it. Great way to be holistic. I hope you guys enjoyed it because I know I did. I hope you guys in the comment section enjoyed it because I know I did. We're going to be back. We're going to be back every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on the West Coast. It's got me all topsy-turvy. All right, so we'll be back every Sunday. It'll be a different crew, not always Alec and Eric, but obviously I'd love to have you guys back. It's going to be first come, first serve, so you got to be on it. Yeah. So we'll be back on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you guys want to get in here, ask us some questions next Sunday, you know where to find us at the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.